It's great to have you here on the Clark Howard Show. You know, our mission is to serve you with advice and information that empowers you to make better financial decisions in your life. And it's Friday. Time for me to learn from my mistakes. It's our weekly Clark Stinks segment. And later, something I really think stinks. Say that 3 times. Gift cards. They've gotten a lot uglier. I need to tell you what you need to know to protect your wallet coming up later about gift cards. But right now, it is time for Clark Stinks.
I should have never encouraged you to speak.
You must think I'm pretty stupid.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe you're right, pal.
I just heard Christa say Clark walks the walk. The correct saying is walks the talk. Actually do what you say. It's often misspoken. Talk is cheap. Walking the talk is tough. Please correct this often mistaken interpretation. And thank you for walking the talk, Brian.
I've never heard the expression that way.
Yeah, I guess that's correct. We learn something new every day.
Thank you, Brian.
I don't think you stink, but when a mother asked about obtaining an unsecured $30,000 loan for her soon-to-be physician daughter, you didn't mention military opportunities. The Air Force and perhaps the other branches offer something called the Financial Assistance Program, FAP, which is designed to recruit physicians in residency training. Folks in the FAP receive an annual bonus as well as a monthly stipend. I took advantage of this program in the late 90s and it worked out well. I incurred a 42-month commitment for participating in the program, but I ended up staying in the U.S. Air Force nearly 20 years longer. It's definitely something worth looking at, Mike.
Mike, thank you very much for your, what would that be, 23 years and 6 months of service to our great nation. And the military branches are facing a severe shortage of personnel now at all levels of education, training, and skills. And we are in a time that the world is looking a little less safe than it has in a while. And know that Uncle Sam needs you in the U.S. military, and there are benefits, just like you stated, for someone completing their medical training and going into residency to serve our great nation and have the nation relieve you of a lot of those bills.
Hello, Mr. Howard. Just kidding. I have been listening to the show for 10 plus years and have held my tongue, but I need to finally vent. I'm a lifelong Michigander and more specifically a Motown boy, and I cringe every time cars are brought up on the show. I always know what Clark will say, buy Toyota or Honda or even Kia. Why is there never, ever, not ever any love for the American car companies? I know you love Tesla, but I put them in a category of their own. I have only owned American cars my entire life and have not regretted it. Please show some love to GM, Ford, and Chrysler. I know that one's not technically American anymore. I still love the show and appreciate your great insights. And P.S., my son is a fellow Chippewa. Fire up chips, Alex.
What Alex is referring to is Central Michigan University, where I got my master's degree. And, when you hear me talk about the car brands, it's based on customer satisfaction and record of repair and Consumer Reports recommendations. And on the scales they use, unfortunately, the 2 American brands, in addition to Tesla, GM and Ford, and the European-owned Stellantis, have not measured up as well when they're put head-to-head generally with other models. So that's why, Alex, I've said it. I'm not smart enough to tell you what makes a good car and what's not, because my mechanical knowledge is very poor. So I have to base it on the research and data of others, and that's why when you hear me read from those lists, you hear particular brands. And by the way, what was really interesting recently about foreign brands is what's happened with the German ones, that BMW is now ranked by Consumer Reports as one of the very most reliable of brands.
Wow.
And Mercedes is ranked as one of the lowest reliability of all brands. So brands do move around over time in terms of where they rank in terms of reliability and quality. And even within brands from the same country, i.e. BMW and Mercedes.
Hello, Mr. Turtle Sloth Howard. I listen to your podcast every day, but man, you speak so slowly. I turn my podcast player up to 3 times speed.
3 times speed?
That sounds like really fast when your show comes on, and it's still not fast enough. Is there any way to maybe speed up the recording on your end? You could get more in the show if you talk a little faster. Paul in Utah.
Paul, gosh, it's weird. I do speak so slowly, and I guess that may be a flaw in me. And that's why it's so great with podcasts that you can speed it up. I've never heard of anybody listening at 3 times speed. That sounds like Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Yeah, I do audiobooks on 1.5, and I feel like that's pushing it. Huh.
So you can, and you may not know this, with a podcast, you can choose the speed, and most often people listen 1.3 if they're trying to get through a podcast quicker. Maybe the way I speak, maybe 1.5. 3.0, though, man, that's
You're talking
fast.
like this?
You know, that was something my syndicator used to use as a marketing technique when they sold my syndicated radio show. Do you know this?
I do. I remember they'd compress, they'd speed you up so they could play more commercials.
So, yeah, normally a syndicated hour of talk radio has 18 minutes of commercials, and stations could choose to run 19 or 20 depending on what speed up they chose to do of me. So I was a revenue machine for them, with them being able to get 2 more minutes of commercials an hour.
Clark stinks like hot sewage in July in Atlanta. America was founded on squatting, and it originates from British and medieval common law. You are well within your right to be against it, but please do not portray it as a new mystery when it's an integral part of European and American history. It was successfully used to dispossess Native Americans and other populations, such as during the Japanese internment of their land. That's why the laws have remained the same. The laws were frequently and commonly used by the majority against the minority populations. It's unfortunate it's being overhyped today and is not the raging problem the media proclaims it to be. Do some basic research before spouting off uninformed nonsense about this quote-unquote new problem, Jennifer. And then I'll say I got lots of messages after that segment from people just pointing out that Florida did enact a squatter law.
And I just did a story in my TV work about a family that came home to find strangers living in the house, and they were squatting in it. And the police sided with the squatters and arrested the homeowners for trying to make a claim to their own property. I mean, this is a problem. I've never heard, Jennifer, the history that you stated, and I have no knowledge to be able to disagree with anything you said, that it was a historical thing used to discriminate against the Native Americans and other populations.
In your answer on car lessors that are over their mileage before lease end, you suggested waiting up to the lease end and buying or paying penalties. What you should absolutely do is contact the leasee and ask to purchase additional miles beforehand. While you may pay a premium for them, it is nowhere near what you will pay if you wait until the lease's end. Jane.
Jane, thank you. And some leases do permit that if you buy the miles up front when you enter into the lease, they all do. And you can buy additional miles. You're basically paying more per month by prepaying the miles. Doing so within the lease you're already in, that depends on the lease contract, whether you can buy at a lower, more preferential rate and buy up additional miles at a lower price while you're in the lease. But absolutely, before you start a lease, if you know your driving pattern and you know it doesn't fit a lease that says 9,000 miles a year, 12,000 miles a year, whatever it is, and your driving pattern you know is 15, 18, 20,000 a year, yes, you buy those lease miles up front at the beginning of the lease, at a fraction of the cost of paying the penalty at the end of the lease. Good point.
Oh, Clark, your answer about cars being the second largest purchase next to your home that we have in our lives, really? That answer stinks as much as my socks after a 7-hour hike in the southwest desert of Utah on a 100-degree day. Tallying up the cost of medical services, including insurance premiums, out-of-pocket expenses, deductibles, etc., can far outpace the cost of a newer used car. A consumer may purchase a new car worth $45,000 spread over 5 years. According to KFF.org, the average annual premiums in 2022 were $79.11 for single coverage, that's $7,911, and $22,463 for family coverage. Multiply that cost over 5 years, and that's a staggering number. Adding copays and out-of-pocket expenses, it appears the second largest purchase in our lives is health insurance, not vehicles, just saying. And side note, thanks for all your travel tips and all you and your team do. We just returned from a 2-week trip to southern Utah, to 3 days in Milwaukee, 12-degree weather, to Miami for an 11-day Panama cruise with carry-on luggage only. Yes, it can be done. 14 days carry-on requires creativity, but definitely worth it. Pam.
Pam, your point about health insurance costs and the cost of health care, totally valid. You're talking, though, about an individual having to pay, or a family having to pay their own premiums, maybe a small business owner or a family buying their own coverage. Most people are in indirectly or directly subsidized health insurance where they pay maybe 10% of the premiums, 25% of the premiums, or for family coverage, 50% of the premiums. So your point is completely true if somebody is paying for their own coverage. I'm so glad you loved all the trips. Milwaukee, 12-degree weather. 12 degrees, not my thing. Even at a ski slope, 12 degrees is way too cold for me. When you were ski team in New England, you used to ski in temperatures like that regularly, didn't you?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yuck.
Yeah. There's no way that you stink, but I have to say, I heard you some time ago congratulate a person who mentioned he was recently married. The institution of marriage is, in my opinion, the worst scourge to ever befall American society. In my experience talking to people over decades, marriage and eventually divorce has led to long-term misery as well as emotional and financial ruin. I don't think you should congratulate people when they say they're engaged or married. On the contrary, I think you should actively dissuade people from getting married because it could very well be the beginning of the end of their life, although they will not realize it at the time. I'm in my mid-50s who has never been married. I became a millionaire in my 40s, retired at 50, and I'm on track to become a multimillionaire before I reach 60. I know that if I had gotten married earlier in life, I would have gotten divorced repeatedly and lost half of my lifetime savings each time. Instead of being broke, still working, angry, and hating women, I'm happy and wealthy for being a lifelong bachelor. I have no regrets. Thank you, Clark. Love the show. Rob.
Rob, so you got to know that I am an incurable romantic.
Rob is definitely not. No question.
So, Rob, you and I are looking at this emotionally completely differently. And I find that when a marriage works, it can be like the greatest thing in your life because you have that partner, maybe not forever, couples apart. And yes, there are emotional and financial consequences of divorce, no doubt. But as far as not wanting to congratulate someone, hopefully when they're getting married, they are deeply in love with the person they're about to say, I do, I will, whatever the vows say, to. And so hope springs eternal. And if it works well, it's great. At the same time, you are, as I step back and go practical for a minute, half of all marriages end in divorce. And it is true that that is very costly, and it can make your life financially go into reverse. So I'd say on this, we both have perfectly valid points.
Shame on you, Clark. I just listened to you talk about your property tax appeal and was appalled to hear that you had hired someone to file the appeal for you. I realize you're busy, but this entire process could be completed in less time than it takes to watch the average football game. I've appealed my property taxes 4 times. In each case, it wasn't more than a couple of hours from start to finish. I won 3 of the 4 appeals. This has saved me thousands of dollars over the years. I must also give Christa stinks for glossing over the fact that her assessment was frozen for 3 years without explanation. If you appeal and it's denied, your assessment is frozen for 3 years, and that translates into property taxes not going up for 3 years, which is also a victory in my book. Thank you and the team for the entertaining and insightful advice over the years, Kevin.
Kevin, I'm going to blow your mind why I don't handle my own appeals anymore. Before I was in public life, I did my own appeals. And I don't do them now because I'm always worried that if I appear before the board, that I will get undue favor because of people knowing who I am. And so I have tried to stay anonymous by hiring a firm to handle appeals since I became a public figure, so that I would never feel like I was getting an unfair advantage over my fellow taxpayers. So that's why, I know how to do it. I've done it. I've organized my presentations and all that earlier in my life. But today I would never handle my own appeal simply because I want to be above question that I am not receiving any special advantage because of position or recognition, and that's why. But you are right that unless it is a complicated appeal, if somebody's willing to do the legwork themselves and feels confident they can be non-emotional, polite, clear, and concise in their appeal and stick strictly to the facts, yes, somebody can handle their own appeal. Coming up ahead, I want to talk about how gift cards that already were a difficult product to be excited about have become so dangerous to buy that you might as well go out on the street and take a $20 bill and light that baby on fire. I've always been biased against gift cards because there are lots of problems with them. A retailer, a restaurant that you give somebody a gift card from could go out of business before they can use it. Somebody may get a gift card for a place they don't shop at or don't eat at. That's why there are gift card exchanges. But there's been a shift that brings the problems with gift cards to a whole new level. And that is what's known as card draining, that has absolutely skyrocketed, taken off as a crime. ProPublica did a deep dive research on this and found that a quarter of Americans who have received gift cards that have no money on them. The giver spent all that money buying that gift card, and the recipient ends up with nothing. Most of the time, the recipient doesn't tell the giver because, well, it'd feel funny to say, hey, thanks for that gift card, but it has nothing on it. And of the people who ended up with gift cards that have been drained, more than half could get no restitution at all from who they received it to. 3 of the biggest gift card outfits, which is Apple, Walmart, and Target, because so many people give people gift cards from Apple, Walmart, and Target. All 3 have in their terms and conditions, they wash their hands of it. That card has been drained. It's empty when the recipient receives it. Apple, Walmart, and Target say, not their problem. Doesn't matter that their gift cards aren't secure. Somebody bought it from us, so we're keeping the money. We're not doing anything. And the reality is 60% of companies disclosed in the last year, 60% of retailers said they've had an increase in card draining on gift cards. What is card draining? There are criminal rings, including a new allegation that Chinese organized crime has decided that this is more profitable than selling fentanyl that's killing our kids in the United States. What gift card draining is where runners are paid to go grab gift cards, or internal theft. Employees inside a retailer will take a block of gift cards, give them out to the criminal ring. They then remove the thing where the code is on it, maybe a code and a pen. They remove them, and they have chemicals they remove them with. Then they reapply the cover after they've captured the information on it. The information from the gift card is loaded onto a software program that sadly you can go buy right now online that will track the cards. They repeatedly check the cards till one becomes available. And the reason it's called card draining, the criminal ring then immediately uses that card the second it's activated at a register to buy things, empty the card, the money's gone. Many times before the gift card buyer has reached their car in the parking lot from the retailer they bought the card at, the money's already gone before they got in the car, way before they give it to the gift recipient. The industry has no answers because gift cards are so enormously popular with retailers, financial officers, because of what's known as breakage. The amount of gift cards sold that are never redeemed or are not redeemed for a long period of time is worth billions and billions and billions of dollars in profits to retailers and restaurants because they have 100% profit from those cards that are never redeemed. It's always 100% profit. And the others, they have the float. So that's why the industry does not care. There are all kinds of lawsuits flying around. ProPublica talks about the ones against Target and Walmart for not standing behind their gift cards. And those gift card racks in a retailer, they have gift cards from many, many different retailers. That's where the small-time crooks are coming in. They're surreptitiously grabbing those off those displays. They're going home doing what the criminal gangs are doing, but small potatoes, getting the codes from those, using the off-the-shelf software that's so readily available. They put the cards back on the shelf in the store, and somebody then unsuspectingly buys that gift card, and then in minutes or hours, the money's gone. And again, you are left on the hook. Now, Apple just lost a class action paying roughly $2 billion in compensation. Apple will not comment, but know that Apple's gift card system is not secure. Walmart's gift card system, not secure. Target's gift card system, not secure. And as for whose gift cards are secure, I don't know any. And this crime is growing so fast that it is telling you, if I wasn't so cheap, for a fact, for those of you who watch the YouTube show, I would burn up a 20 right now on camera.
That would pain you way too much.
It's not happening.
No.
But I want that impression in your mind that that's what you're doing when you buy gift cards. Every dollar you're putting into them, you might as well light a match to it because the crime is growing so fast, the system is so flawed, and the money is so gone.
All right, we'll go to questions.
I have no opinion on this, as you can see.
Rick in Michigan says, last year about this time, I started a 5-year CD ladder on your suggestion. Since my other accounts are at Schwab, I used them, and it was very easy. At the time, the rates for a callable or non-callable CD were so close to the same rates, I opted for the non-callable option. Now I'm looking at my first conversion rollover, but there's a considerable, close to 1% rate difference. I understand you have no crystal ball, but what metrics or thought process should I use to pick between the two?
So if you're doing a classic ladder, you took your money, divided it into 5 piles, 1-year CD, 2-year, 3, 4, 5. And when the first 1-year CD comes up, you then take that money and you buy a 5-year CD. And that way you always have access to 20% of your money every year. So now there's more and more expectation that interest rates have pretty much peaked and they're going to go down. Now, interest rates are going to stay higher for longer than expected because inflation has been more stubborn than expected because, and by the way, bigger problem for us than a lot of other developed countries because our economy is growing so strongly, so much faster than other places. So the expectation is, though, in a 5-year cycle, interest rates are absolutely going to be lower. So if you do a callable when it's to the advantage of the bank that issues that CD, they're going to say, yep, you got your interest. You got it for a year. You got it for 2 years. You got it for 3. We're not paying you 5 years at that rate. So there's a cost to you either way. You either buy a non-callable 5-year and accept that lower rate somewhere probably in the low 4s, I'm guessing, is what you're thinking. Or you buy a 5-year callable, it would be maybe 5-point-something%. If it were me having to make that decision, it's the whole purpose of the ladder, I would do a 5-year non-callable. If interest rates stay high for 5 years, I'm an idiot. It just costs you 1% on your money. But the purpose of the ladder is to do just that and not own what are known as callable CDs.
William in Pennsylvania says, in December of 22, should I name the cell phone company?
Oh, yeah.
Verizon offered me their 5G home internet for $25 a month after discounts that I have with them for 10 years. I grabbed it, and yes, I've been paying $25 a month for their internet service. Very clearly on my monthly billing statements is a $25 discount from their regular price of $50. Despite our agreement, in March the discounts went away, and my internet bill is now $50 a month. I've spoken to 6 different Verizon representatives, all assuring me my price would be reinstated with no success. Last night's call with the manager took me over the top when he told me I would have to call them every month for them to manually enter a portion of my discount. I asked for a transcript of our call and was refused. This morning I filed a complaint with the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office asking for my pricing to be reinstated, and I believe in Pennsylvania this type of agreement is binding. The first page of my account statement thanks me for being a 17-year customer. I'm pretty sure I'll be moving on. This is an FYI to your listeners. I will let you know the outcome. Love your show.
Okay, so I don't want you to move on, William, because that allows Verizon's bureaucracy to win when they're now allegedly cheating you from an incredible 10-year offer. So what you do, and I find this works very well with the lumbering bureaucracies at AT&T and Verizon. People have had success with this with T-Mobile as well. And that is to file a complaint at bbb.org, the Better Business Bureau site. Better Business Bureau works really well at getting big, dumber, and dumbest bureaucracies to do what they said they would do, but they can't get their act together to do. It doesn't work with crooks, but it does work with legitimate organizations that just are failures at customer no service. So go to bbb.org, file that complaint against Verizon, and I will be shocked if you don't get what you signed up for and Verizon does not now do what they're supposed to do. Now, will Verizon apologize? My experience, big bureaucracies never apologize. But who cares about the apology now? Let's just get what you are entitled to. If you go away, Verizon wins, you lose the benefit of, 8 more years of, and they're the ones that made the offer to you. And I remember that offer when it was advertised of $25 a month internet, home internet. And they decide, well, we're just not going to do it anymore. That's not okay. So let me hear back.
All right, it's been, I would say, a little bit of a heavy week around here on the Clark Howard Show, right? We've had some heavy topics.
Heavy topics.
I thought we'd just end with a fun one from Mike in Michigan. Mike says, does Clark ever plan to actually use his millions of dollars to enrich his or his wife's life? Or will it always be run-down hotels and hours searching for the cheapest flights and $3 shirts, etc.?
First of all, on the $3 shirts, I'm insulted. My T-shirts I used to work out in, I paid $2.80 for. So don't round them up to $3. Yes, I will continue to do that because I obviously don't care about the quality of clothing at all. If you watch the YouTube show, you see how I dress.
Well, somebody also wrote in, I didn't read this, Clark Stinks, because it was kind of mean, but they basically said they saw you in a subway station and your clothes looked like, you look like a vagabond, like you were bad blue jeans and, yeah. I'm thinking you might have been coming from your Habitat build if you're wearing blue jeans, though.
Yeah, or on the subway in New York.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, because a lot of times in New York when it's cold, I think a lot of people in cold weather kind of look like a vagabond. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it is true, Mike, completely true, that I don't value clothing at all. Now, on the hotels, my wife and I had that couples meeting years ago, and we don't stay in rundown hotels anymore. She made it clear I was taking the fun out of vacations when we'd be somewhere and we'd be in a real dump. And so now we stay in decent hotels always. And I've actually twice left a hotel. One time I had to forfeit my money. The other time I got a refund of my money when the hotel was flat out unacceptable. And so we have made that change. I have flexed on that. As far as cheapest flights, that's who I am. I mean, I'm going to do cheapest flights, but we do really live a nice life. And we spend money on what matters, which is enjoying ourselves, our kids, for charities. And I would say I am not in the least deprived at all. But I am thrifty, witnessed by the individual who wrote in and said, what was I riding? I was riding a subway train, which is what I do and how I get around in central cities. I ride the subway. Well, why? Because it's the cheapest, most efficient, and quickest way to get around. So we're ending this week with you, Mike, and understand that my whole core is about what I talk about, that we learn ways to save more, spend less, and avoid getting ripped off. And one other thing, have a great weekend. See you Monday.